Hello, Zer0 Books readers. It's me again, Douglas Lane. This video is a collaboration of sorts with Greg Belvedere from the YouTube channel Never Speak in Absolutes. And in it, I'll be talking about the idea of progress while pulling clips from Christopher Lasch's The True and Only Heaven and Mark Fisher's Ghosts of My Life. But before I do that, I want to comment on the most recent online controversy, namely the purging of Alex Jones.
Just take the red pill, people!
If there's one sign of progress today, it surely has to be the banning of Alex Jones from Facebook, YouTube, Apple's iTunes, and even YouPorn. It's 2018. Do we really have to tolerate the hate-filled nonsense of an immoral charlatan like Alex Jones?
You want me to drive?
Hey, it's the 80s.
All right.
Well, actually, this popular idea that social, political, and moral values automatically advance with each passing year can't be justified. It's a bastardized version of a Whiggish understanding of history and human development. And despite its progressive appearance, it is fundamentally conservative. The idea that we are obviously more advanced, more enlightened today than we were X number of years ago contains a hidden assumption, namely that the current form of society is the end of the line. The notion is that we already have the right system, the right ideas, the just and true world.
Here we go.
Progress, then, amounts to perfecting what already is.
Look at that eye break up and bang against those Timex watches.
For the first time in this century, for the first time in perhaps all history, man does not have to invent a system by which to live. We don't have to talk late into the night about which form of government is better. We don't have to wrest justice from the kings. We only have to summon it from within ourselves. We must act on what we know.
This notion of progress is easy to knock down, easy to make fun of, but there are more complicated, more radical, more interesting conceptions of progress. There is, for instance, a materialist understanding of progress that can be demonstrated empirically. Who can deny that we've advanced technologically, or in terms of total wealth, or in regards to our scientific understanding? Still, while the reality of technology progressing can't be denied, the question of how long or how far we can continue on in this direction is certainly debatable.
Well, there are two things that give me pause about this imposing body of belief, which has been dominant in our culture for a long time. One is the fear that since the whole thing is premised on a seemingly limitless abundance, this premise may be highly questionable in an age when more and more attention has to be paid to ecological limits.
In his 1991 book, The True and Only Heaven, Lasch shifts from this ecological or scientific critique of the notion of progress to an ideological critique. What Lasch notices is that our current notion of progress is founded not upon a belief in a final destination or in some messianic revelation or redemption, but on a process or a method that necessitates constant change. In fact, it's only by assuring that there is no final destination, that nothing can be fully grasped and contained, that we can be sure of progress as a method. We don't aim at arriving, but aim at expanding the realm of our understanding and power, even as we put off ever fully knowing what might justify or legitimate the power we claim. Perhaps a good way to understand or contextualize Lasch's critique of progress would be to compare it to Hegel's critique of Kant's ethics. Kant's Copernican turn His move to place the human mind, or human subjectivity, at the center of his philosophy was meant to be a deontological move. In other words, we no longer had to seek knowledge of the world as it really was out there beyond us, but instead could content ourselves with the sort of practical knowledge of our own human categories. What this meant, however, was that when we made moral claims or took moral action, all we could know was whether our activities abided by the moral principles of our own understanding. And here's what Hegel noticed. He saw that while Kant described moral activity as a questing after morality, while Kant might understand political life, for instance, as an infinite struggle to better approximate moral activity, what Kant really argued for was self-interested action. The trouble was that without a justified understanding of the good, as it really is in itself, all that Kant was left with was an empty formal adherence to some worked-out duty. What's worse, given that we're cut off from the true understanding of the good as it is in itself, given that our understanding must always be incomplete, we are put in the position of pushing off true moral action indefinitely. Without any way of knowing what really is good in itself, all we are left with is self-interest to guide us. Or perhaps not even with that. Taken to the end, if we can't truly know what is fully good, all that we are left with are inclinations and impulses, no matter how thoroughly we work out a method to our madness. All this applies to secular notions of progress as well. Without faith in a destination, without knowing where the truth or where utopia might be, how are we to make progress? Towards what exactly are we progressing? In the second section of the first chapter of Mark Fisher's book, Ghosts of My Life, he writes about the slow cancellation of the future. Fisher asserts that the 21st century is defined by inertia. Rather than making progress, whether in the arts or in politics, we recycle the past, mash up what was, and distract ourselves with a newness that is superficial. Could it be that what Fisher is describing is a culture that still believes in progress without believing in utopia?
All irregularities will be handled by the forces controlling each dimension.
For Hegel, the real world wasn't somewhere out there beyond us, because that beyond was already a category of our own understanding. The truth was already with us, even if the truth wasn't static.
Diamond, radium, sapphire, silver, and steel. Sapphire and steel have been assigned.
And this is why merely shutting down Alex Jones is such a bad idea. It short-circuits the process of reason, the working out of the truth, by skipping over the part where we come to a real understanding of what makes Jones so mad. Instead of acting morally, we are letting corporations and other invisible power structures substitute their self-interest for true and actual moral action. Zer0 Books would never publish a book or video by Alex Jones. But the reason we wouldn't do that is because we know who we are and we know what our point of view is. We don't hide it. We're not trying to substitute our own understanding for some neutral truth. But rather, we're trying to argue that our understanding gets to the truth so that our truth can be enacted. Facebook, YouTube, Apple aren't subjects. They aren't speaking, but rather they are meant to be neutral.
These companies are playing politics. And what they should just do is we make an assessment about what reality is, and we stand by it. And that's why there should be multiple Facebooks. That's why there should be multiple platforms for podcasts. So that people, if they have a disagreement with that, then that's fine.
call me crazy, but like I don't think it's a good idea for a single private company to have control over the entire fourth estate.
Absolutely.
You're crazy, Jim.
And this is, I mean, ultimately, this is why we've got to break up things like Facebook.
Again, if we're going to hold on to progress, we can't rely on some invisible force, some objective power. We can't just argue that we're right because it's the current year, or because everybody already knows that we're right. We have to bring what we think would represent or be a kind of progress into the world. We have to demonstrate what progress is, and why our understanding of it should win.
The paradigm of absolute control. And that's why we're just out here doing simple things, pointing out that we're meant to be in nature and be natural. And this is where we find the source that God made to transcend the New World Order. And that's why they want to try to keep us out of it.
Let's consider Alex Jones one more time. What is at the foundation of his thought is paleoconservatism. And according to Wikipedia, a paleoconservative is a conservative who stresses tradition, limited government, and civil society, along with religious, regional, national, and Western identity. Jones, then, is the opposite of a progressive. He clings very hard to an ill-defined sense of what he thinks of as the ordinary, what he thinks of as the natural. Still, it's easy to see that what makes him compelling isn't what he loves or what he supports, but what he hates. It's his vision of the globalist agenda, the globalist agents of chaos, his paranoia about a transhumanist satanic elite that is really enlivening. In fact, with a few tweaks, what Alex Jones describes in nightmares terms can easily take on a utopian character. Again, Wikipedia says that paleoconservatives argue that since human nature is limited and finite, any attempt to create a man-made utopia is headed for disaster and potential carnage. Instead, they lean toward tradition, family, customs, religious institutions, and classical learning to provide wisdom and guidance. The progressive, then, on the other hand, must believe in reason instead of tradition. They must embrace rationality as opposed to intuition. And the progressive must finally have faith that the infinite, the noumenal, the whole world, the totality, can become a category of our understanding as we move forward in time.
For the first time, we have the power to decide the fate of our planet and ourselves. This is a time of great danger, but our species is young and curious and brave. It shows much promise. In the last few millennia, we have made the most astonishing and unexpected discoveries about the cosmos and our place within it. I believe our future depends powerfully on how well we understand this cosmos in which we float like a mote of dust in the morning sky.